All right, and we're live. Okay, let me get the GarageBand up and we'll start recording here. I have the draft order all determined. I'll drop it on you. Before we go live. Let's start recording. Yes. GarageBand forever. All right, here we go. All right. Come on. There we go. All right, let's do this. 3, 2. It's another horror movie draft here on Crossing State Lines. We're back. I'm alongside my co-host Dave. Dave, big news for you this week. You beat out your combined totals from the 70s and the 80s. You did come in second, but you got to 25%. That's big.
Yeah, I'm on my way to 40%. Like I said, I've been testing you guys all along. I've been playing you guys. I've been slowly, incrementally increasing my percentage. And this week I'm looking at a 40 to 45% share. So hopefully you guys can get 50 if you want to win.
That's true. We're really gonna have to work. And by we, for our 2000s horror movie draft, we are joined by MC Ken B of the JKLOL podcast. Ken, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. I am so incredibly excited to be on the show, mostly because I've watched your other drafts and I have sat back and just watched in horror and disgust at the lack of respect for certain films. So I'm happy to share in my favorite decade of horror films, because this is the one that made me love horror movies, because this is when I was a teenager. And when do you love horror movies? When you're a teenager.
Yeah, that was my next question, was because I presented to you the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s, and you picked the 2000s right off the rip. So why did you choose the 2000s to come on for?
This is the decade that got me into and kind of like identified who I was as a moviegoer. And this is when I was introduced to all those 90s and 80s movies that like made me love horror movies. In the 2000s, it has some amazing, amazing horror films. There's some stinkers, but it's not like the 90s. The 90s was all about those teen screams and those really like crappy thrillers. 2000s start to get real creepy real fast. And I love this. This decade's like one of my favorites in all of horror history. It goes 2000s, then the 80s. Those are like my 1-2 right there, 1-2 punch. So love me some 2000s.
No, yeah. And it's a good decade. When I was doing the research for it, there's some good movies on here. I feel like it's kind of like the 80s, where there's a lot of good movies. I'm not sure if there are any like Halloween level or Scream level movies, but there's still a lot of good ones to be had in 2000s. And as I didn't tell you guys yet, but I did the randomizer. The JKLOL podcast sponsor, random.org, was kind enough to lend their services to us tonight. And the draft order is your boy, number 1. I have the first pick. Ken will go second, and Dave gets the wheel.
Oh, I'm so mad. I got the sandwich.
Yeah, number 2 is the worst pick to have. But
I got the meat. Gross.
Got it. So I am going to begin. There are a couple of movies I had in mind. But I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, because I did this last week. I told Dave, I said, if I had the number 1 pick in the 2000s, I'm going to take this movie, and I'm going to take The Strangers with my first pick. I think The Strangers is the scariest movie of the decade. It's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. There's just something about, it's kind of in the same vein as Halloween, where it's one of those setups where there doesn't need to be a motive. They just want to kill. And really it comes down to, and I know it's a little bit overwrought at this point and everybody knows it, but one of the most chilling lines in horror movie history is, why are you doing this to us? Because you were home. Like, that is horrifying. That it's just like you had nothing to do with it. There's no malice towards you. There's nothing at all. They just wanted to kill people, and you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It is one of the most horrifying concepts I've ever seen in a movie.
I just have to go out and say that if I had the number 1 overall pick, this would have been my pick, because this is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. It has mixed reviews for a lot of people, and I don't know why, and it makes me upset, because when I watched that movie, there's a couple scenes in that movie where I literally, like, the first time I watched it, my jaw dropped, like the hairs tingled. I went and made sure my doors were locked. Like, it's one of those kind of movies where it's the fear of the unknown. And for like the first like 20 minutes, it's like it kind of gets slow. But as soon as like the strangers get inside the house and they don't know they're in the house, that's when like shit just starts to go like sideways. And I think like that's some of the most like scary stuff that you can find in a horror movie. I always am a big believer of, show less and make the audience kind of imagine what's going on in the background. And this movie does a really good job of that, where we focus on the people in the house And then when the others are outside of the house too, you have no idea what they're doing as well. So it's a lot of that you don't know, you can't see, but the fear is on the outside. I love this movie. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, no, it's a classic. I watched it. It's that whole can you watch it in the daylight and still be scared test, and absolutely, because I watched it. I remember the first time I saw it was I think 3 years ago, maybe I think it was 3 years ago. I was at my kitchen counter in broad daylight, and I still like had trouble like looking around me, like over my shoulder, like is there somebody here? Because I could see some criticism of like Scott Speedman is not exactly an Oscar worthy actor. He's not very good, but he's fine. And really, it's about building up that tension and that horror, and the movie does it very well. It really is that case of when you don't need a motive, it's that much scarier. It's not somebody coming out of your dreams. It's not somebody wearing a human face on himself, running around with a chainsaw in this demented family. It's something very real that is definitely a possibility of something that could happen to people out in the woods, remote, and it's a classic. So Ken, I hate to take your first pick, but you do have the second pick, which is if there's any consolation, you can take any movie but The Strangers.
See, that's the thing is like, taking away my first overall pick leads me to either take what I think is like my favorite movie versus what I think is the best horror series of the 2000s.
So I'll put you down for Snakes on a Plane.
Snakes on a Plane is fantastic. I wouldn't classify it as a horror film. It is a thriller and it is a motherfucker, if you will.
Creature.
But it's definitely a creature feature. I'll give it that. You know what? With the number 2 overall pick, I'm going to take Saw. I wanted to go with one of my favorite movies of all time, but I'm not going to take it because I think that Saw is a generational movie. When you talk about like a movie that starts an entire like kind of movie, we get those torture porn movies that come from this essentially. But Saw was the first one, and you get that twist at the end that the killer's in the room. Sorry, hey, if you haven't seen it, came out in like 2002 or something.
Oh, spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! Jigsaw's in the room the whole time while they're locked in there, like sawing each other's legs and shit off. Like, this movie is incredibly terrifying. When the first time I saw it, I was like, "What is this movie?" This movie has tons and tons of sequels. It started an entire like line of horror films, and one of the scary movies, I think it's Scary Movie 3, spoofs it. You've got Dr. Phil and Shaq like cuts off his own foot or the wrong foot or something like that. And it's like stupid.
I think that's Scary Movie 4. Scary Movie 3, I think, is the Charlie Sheen one.
Yes, I love that one. That one's so good. With the alien pees out of his finger. That's the best.
That's my favorite one. That's like the only one I really
Rabbit. That's a fantastic spoof movie. But yeah, I gotta take Saw. I think it's probably the best franchise of the 2000s for horror movies. There's only one other like franchise in this that I think would come second, and I almost took that number 1 or number 2 overall. But I'm going Saw.
I can't blame you. I mean, Saw on its own is definitely one of the more revolutionary genres of the decade. And the only issue I have is, so yes, everything's great. The twist at the end is fantastic. Jigsaw getting up and saying game over and shutting the door, fantastic. Incredible. The only issue is that it wasn't a situation where it was like, wow, Halloween launched all these slashers and we got some classics out of it. There's never been a torture porn movie better than Saw. And Saw is the only good one, I think, of them all. Like, all the Saw sequels, I think, are pretty bad. Don't even get me started on Hostel. I think Hostel.
I think the only one that like rivals Saw is Hostel, and even that one, like there's only like one scene that sticks out of my mind. It's the one with the eyeball, and like that's the only, you know what I mean. But like besides that, you're not really getting all. But you are getting like Human Centipede comes from this, and I know you're getting all the.
You're just building my case.
I know, but you get all these terrible movies that come from it. But Saw was like the first to do it, and then you get like 20 different Saws after that too. So I totally get it. I don't know what came first, if it was 13 Ghosts or Saw. I think Saw came first. But another one of those like kind of movies, I think, from the 2000s with Matthew Lillard and like other people. But I digress.
Ghosts crawled so Saw could walk.
That's how it has to be. It's how it has to be.
So Dave is reeling. Dave has not been happy with those 2 first picks, especially Saw. But
sorry, buddy.
What if I told you, Dave, you could pick 2 movies in a row that aren't Saw or The Strangers?
And you could crush my whole entire dreams. So that's another piece there too.
I was so excited to take Saw. Jake knows this. I was so excited. I was hoping for the first pick so I could take Saw. I thought Jake would take it. But all right, so throw for a little bit of a loop, but that's all right. I'm prepared, like everyone does in a draft. My first pick, I'm gonna take 28 Days Later.
You son of a bitch.
I think it's the best movie left on the board after the first two were taken. I think you guys hit the first two on the head. I think those are the two best horror movies of the decade, of the decade so far. So, props to you guys. But I will take 28 Days Later, and I think, or 28 Weeks Later rather.
Wait, no, you're taking 28 Days Later, right?
Days Later, yeah. What did I say? I said weeks.
Don't take the weeks.
Weeks.
I don't want weeks. You guys can have. I'll take 28 days later.
Nobody wants weeks. You take days.
Yeah, take days.
Yeah. It's a classic. Anyone that hasn't seen it, I'd recommend it. It's probably, I'm trying to think where it ranks just even since the 2000, and it's still probably a top 5 to 10 movie. It's very good.
Yeah. And it's, you're looking at our first picks overall, three really different yet equally terrifying concepts for all these movies. Home invasion, just want to kill people to kill people, homicide. Saw is the torture aspect, and then 28 Days Later is this rage virus that turns everybody into running zombies and freaking out and destroying everything, apocalyptic events. So different concepts, all three of them, but equally terrifying. So I like 28 Days Later as a pick. It's a classic. Everybody loves it. It's got one of the most chilling posters, I think, of any movie I've seen, with the yellow eyes and the biohazard sign. But yeah, it's a good pick. It's a good pick to start off, Dave. Definitely.
Yeah, that last like sequence in 28 Days Later, like the last like 15 to 20 minutes is some of the most like heart-stopping like in any horror film of all time. The action, you don't know if Cillian Murphy's like character is infected or not. There's like so many things that come along with it. And then there's also like gut-wrenching moments like the dad and the daughter and like all that stuff. Like this movie is awesome. And it comes out in 2002 and the special effects are great. The acting's great. You also get that like really iconic scene in London when they're crossing over the bridge near Big Ben and everything's empty. It's awesome. And I think this like kind of inspires a little bit of The Walking Dead. I think The Walking Dead comes out either around or like slightly after this, and I think you get some of that feel in The Walking Dead, the comic book. And so I think there's some inspiration there as well. But I love this movie. It's one of my favorite like zombie movies of all time. Top 5 for me for sure.
It's a great movie for sure. And especially with a genre like zombies that have been played out for a while. And it's came up with something fresh. So cheers, 28 Days Later. Dave, your second pick.
So this is one where I was kind of between a bunch of different ones because I think we got the top 3 movies on the board already. But I'm going to switch it up for you guys a little bit. I'm going to go a little bit lighter tone here. I'm going to take Shaun of the Dead. Damn. I think recently I've been going too dark, and I've been trying to adjust my formula going forward. First, I went too far off the board. Then I was mainstream, but I was too dark. I'm going to try to switch up here. I'm going to have a little bit of everything. I'm going to get Shaun of the Dead. It's like a funny kind of weird zombie movie with Simon Pegg. If you haven't seen it, it's really good.
If you haven't seen it, what are you doing?
Huh?
If you haven't seen it, what are you doing?
I know. It's very good. It's funny. It makes all good jokes in all the right places. Edgar Wright directs it. It's probably a top. I think it's probably the best movie left on the board. Look at that. There you go.
I also have Ed as well. Shaun of the Dead is my favorite movie of all time. There's no other movie that I'd rather watch than Shaun of the Dead. I can quote it front to back. I didn't take it number 2 overall for me because I told you I wanted to go between the best movie and my favorite movie. Shaun of the Dead is the best horror comedy to ever come out, I think, in my opinion. The special effects, the acting, the comedy, and the horror. This is genuinely has scary parts when people are being ripped apart and they're like trying to go through like the crowds of zombies. Just everything about this movie, I think, hits every perfect note. And this is my favorite movie of all time.
Not to mention, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, I really enjoy Simon Pegg in this too. Like, I think he's really funny.
I love Simon Pegg, dude. He's so funny, especially in this. But also, at least for my money, one of the best uses of music in a movie I've ever seen.
Yes.
The Don't Stop Me Now pool fight with the pool sticks on the bar owner. I also I love the scene where they're in the house and Simon Pegg just goes upstairs to like, Pete,
oh, prick.
Oh, dude, I know like they work together so well. Like the two of them, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, they're great. And it's just such a funny movie. And the scene where he's doing it's Shaun of the Dead, right? Where he does the fence hopping. Is that Shaun of the Dead? Yeah.
Yeah, but they also do it in Hot Fuzz too. Yeah. And then I think they do it also in World's End because there's the Cornetto trilogy. So,
Yeah, I've actually never seen World's End, but
oh, it's really good. It's super fun. You would
I'll
like
check it out.
super fun.
But I can't, Dave. That's an excellent back-to-back.
I feel like I really nailed the back-to-back here.
I think the 2000s might be your decade, Dave. There's a lot of draft to go. We'll see.
We'll
Ken,
see.
back to you.
All right, so I'm really frustrated here because I want to take another like superstar of a series of movies here, but I think I'm gonna go with my heart a little bit more here, and I'm gonna take 2004 remake Zack Snyder. I'm gonna take Dawn of the Dead. Just straight up, this movie as a remake is probably one of the best remakes to ever be done. The special effects in this movie are amazing. The acting is really good. You get zombie babies, you get Ving Rhames, you get fucking dickheads with boats, you get tragedy, you get comedy, you get a really awesome cover of Down with the Sickness. I don't know. This is probably one of the only movies I actually like by Zack Snyder. And this movie came out when I was 14, and me and my dad saw it in theaters, and it was pretty sweet. My dad probably shouldn't have taken me to see this in theaters, but he did anyway. So great nostalgia in this, and absolutely love this movie. It's one of my faves.
Yeah, I can't blame you. I mean, if we're talking, first of all, like horror remakes almost never go well. Like, I know obviously The Thing is one that stands out as a classic. But modern day horror remakes, like in the past 20 years, like this century, I mean, there really isn't one better than Dawn of the Dead. It's so iconic and so well done. I mean, other than Dawn of the Dead, probably, I know it's a sequel technically, but the New Halloween might be like the second one. Like, that's just how bad the market is for those.
They just don't do a good job with it. But this one, I think, really hits the mark all the way from the beginning when you get like the little zombie girl in the bedroom, all the way to the end when you got them driving through with the chainsaw buses and like the, cutting guys in half as they're like turning corners too fast, and the tragedy of like the boat and like trying to get away. I don't know. This movie just tells like a really great story too. And the characters really drive the story here, like the original Dawn of the Dead. And George Romero is like, obviously a genius, and Night of the Living Dead is probably a top 5 movie for me of all time. But this movie, like, it just takes the cake and being able to like kind of get that horror factor in there. I don't know. I love this movie a lot.
It's a great movie, and I think it's definitely in the conversation as Zack Snyder's best movie. I'm still partial to 300, even though like you, Ken, was a history major. I know it's not accurate at all, but it's still a great movie.
I mean, you got Jack dudes kicking dudes into holes and fucking killing Xerxes. Like, that's
monsters running around and like elephants and like, oh my God, the shot with the sea where the water's going, like the storm is coming in. Oh, it's unbelievable.
That's where, I always say Zack Snyder is the Ed Hardy of directors, and that was his most Ed Hardy movie to date at that point.
That is an excellent comparison, actually, now that I think about it. I'm going to take 300. No, I'm looking.
It's not a horror. It's more
a lot of scary images.
A lot of sexy thinking. What?
For reals, I am going to start off with The Descent.
All right.
Which is, other than The Strangers, those two are probably the scariest movies I've seen in the past 20 years. Actually, Insidious is also on that list. That's not this decade. At least I don't think it is. I think that's the next decade.
2010.
Yeah, I think that was, which is crazy. It came before The Conjuring, but
2010s. That is a decade I could have done real well too. There's some good ones there.
I feel like The Conjuring is the consensus top pick of that decade.
It is number 1 pick. If you don't take that number 1 overall, you are a fool.
Maybe Dave will get that top pick in the 2010s. We'll see.
I've yet to get the top pick. I've gotten
Dave's only gotten the second of the wheel pick.
Sad days.
But anyway, so The Descent is one of the most unsettling experiences I've ever had watching a movie. I did make the mistake of watching this at night, which was a bad move. There's so many things that really stand out to me why it's so terrifying. I think it's that concept of being trapped, obviously, is a big deal. You're underground. There's no one that can come to help you. No one's going to come save you. You're in this on your own. There's a lot of gore. It's very disgusting. The creatures are really, really disturbing and unsettling and unnerving. And it's the whole experience. You're on the edge of your seat because it's dark. There's not a lot of light. So you don't know what's coming around the corner or where you're going, or you're just like the characters themselves. And it's got a lot of great moments. And I remember the trailer for this movie was so scary. And I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. So I don't know how I ended up seeing it, but I did. And I think it was when I was trying my first go around for Hallowstream, and that was one of the movies I watched. And it was horrifying. So got to go with The Strangers. Already took that, The Descent. I'm gonna take The Strangers twice. I'm just gonna make my whole line at The Strangers.
I like that.
So, inspired by Dave, I'm going to go with a really disturbing movie, and then I'm going to lighten the mood and take Zombieland with my next pick. So I want a horror comedy in there, kind of like Shaun of the Dead. Definitely, I feel like Shaun of the Dead is definitely more horror than this movie is. But there's some legitimate horror moments. One of the best cameos of all time in Bill Murray.
Oh, yeah, Bill Murray's the best.
Spoiler alert.
The second one already came out like 10 years later. Like, you haven't seen the first one. There's no spoiler.
I know, but Dave, like we traffic in spoiler alerts that come too late, so might as well keep it.
That's true. What are we Shining with spoiler alert?
Yeah, we've done like whole movie reviews and then like been, oh wait, by the way, spoiler.
Everything in there.
And then Thanos dies. Oh wait, if you haven't seen Endgame, spoiler. Don't.
Damn, I haven't seen that yet. What the fuck?
But I gotta go with Zombieland. Full disclosure about Zombieland, I've never seen it.
Really?
But I know a lot of people who have, and a lot of people who love it. So if I'm going for them picks, and I want something to lighten the mood a little bit. I got The Strangers, I got The Descent. It's so much darkness, literally, and I need some fun. Who doesn't love a little Jesse Eisenberg, a little Woody Harrelson, a little Emma Stone, a little bit of Bill Murray? Come on now, that's great. Come on.
So for instance, the Descent is really good because of the claustrophobia. There's just so much like darkness and tightness. Like it's just that freaks, like that whole concept freaks me out. I can't handle that movie. I think I've only watched that movie twice, and it was a little bit too much for me both times. It's just a lot of just deep breathing. So that movie for me, but for Zombieland's rewatchability is through the roof. Like it's absolutely like a movie. It's always on like TBS. It's always on like Comedy Central. It's hilarious. You've got gore. You've got some fun special effects and like the rules of Zombieland. You've got some good comedy, and you've got some really good actors in there as well with Emma Stone and Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson, and I forget the other girl's name. Sorry, my bad.
Abigail Breslin, is she in?
That might be who it is. Yeah, I'm terrible at actors names.
Little Miss Sunshine. Yeah, it's Abigail Breslin.
Yeah, that's her. But I mean, overall, this movie, like those movies are great back to backs. Zombieland, I think, is the better of the two picks because of just like plain rewatchability, and everybody loves that movie. It's a great movie. The second one sucked ass. Let's just throw that out there real quick. Real bad. The first one's really good.
I will say, all three of my movies so far have had very underwhelming sequels.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
There's that. So, Ken, you got Saw and Dawn of the Dead. What else you got? You're in 2004's ass, Ken. You got two that you want to just keep it rolling.
I'm really frustrated because I wanted to. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna take it. I'm gonna take what I wanted to take before this. I am gonna go with a movie that starts an entire series of movies. And the first one is one of the coolest found footage films of all time. I'm gonna take Paranormal Activity.
My God.
I know I'm juggernauting right now. I've got Saw and Paranormal Activity, which I really feel like the first one was revolutionary. When you've got the scenes with the baby powder, all the blankets, like I could not sleep for days thinking about ghosts pulling on my blanket and like messing me up. You know what I mean? And I know that the other Paranormal Activities are not that good, and there are a lot of jump scares. But the first one really was revolutionary, and the way that they marketed it was very much like Blair Witch Project. It was very much like found footage. Like they quote unquote made this movie with like $20,000, and like this was just like cameras in people's houses, and like the idea of something coming in and like infesting you essentially, and like taking over your relationship and your family and your house is just absolutely terrifying. Especially when it comes to ghosts. Ghosts will mess you up, man. So I love Paranormal Activity. It's like one of my faves.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where you didn't want to sleep with your foot outside the bed anymore.
No.
And then, I mean, also talk about one of the most Ken, you're also drafting movies with iconic last images.
Yeah.
That one's pretty horrifying.
Staring into the camera, like
demon face. It's horrifying. And made on a shoestring budget. Like even when, what was it, Spielberg, whoever kicked in money on it and upped the budget a little bit, but still made a shoestring budget, made like $200 million. So people
it inspired like an entire series of movies, which a lot of the sequels are not very good. There's a couple that are okay. The second one's okay. The third one's fine. But the other ones after that were like, you're the key dimension and the blah, blah, blah. And the ghost is, ass, whatever. Like, I can't handle all those. But the first couple are pretty good.
But like, that's the thing. Like, the last broadcast and the Blair Witch Project like spawned all those trash found footage movies. The only one that was any good was, have you ever seen Record? You ever seen that one?
That's very good. Yeah,
it's on my short list of films there. Yeah,
that one. that movie scared the crap. I don't know what it is about zombie movies, man. Those movies scare the crap out of me.
Well, record the Spanish movie Record, and then you get Quarantine too, which is the remake, which is not as good. But Record, the Spanish one, is like hands down terrifying.
I think I watched it with Maxwell actually, Dave. But we same person I watched the first episode of Black Mirror with. Actually,
oh, nice. Love that show.
Great show. For most of the seasons, most of the episodes are great. But anyway,
got some stinkers, but yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, I can't fault. And then Paranormal Activity came along and like kind of revived the genre. And it, again, like you said, didn't lead to a lot of great movies, but it at least kind of breathed new life into it and made it scary again.
And everyone knows this movie. Like this is a movie that everyone, you say Paranormal Activity, they have like distinct memories of like watching that movie, and the scenes are pretty iconic for the 2000 horrors for sure.
Absolutely. Dave, we got back-to-back picks here. The wheel. What do we got?
Okay, so I'm unsure about my second pick, but I know one of them. I'm going to take The Ring with one of my picks.
Dave has now taken both Ring movies.
They're just really like iconic movies. I mean, when you think about horror, one of the first things at least I think about, I've seen a lot of movies, that creepy girl crawling through the screen. I mean, like that is like intensely like nightmare-ish. It's just, you think about that and just haunts your life. Like that image of her crawling out of the screen, and she's like green and groundy and like, oh my God, it's just, and they make fun of it in Scary Movie, which is awesome. Like it's hilarious. But the whole thing is just that. Also, I have to say, they made a sequel of Rings. Don't see the sequel. Please do not see the sequel.
You can say that about like every single horror movie ever made.
Johnny Galecki is like the star of the movie. Please do not see the sequel.
Yeah, I'm all set with the sequel, but The Ring, the movie itself is it's a revolutionary movie. I really do think that, when you're watching The Ring, it's set a lot of tones for like it takes that Japanese horror and it brings it back into America, which I think is really cool. But yeah, no, I think that's a great pick, and also an iconic pick. It's a movie series that everyone knows. It's one that scares children to this day. So
Absolutely.
Like Dave and I were talking about last week, and I know you were watching it, Ken, so you probably heard, but they were like, well, we made The Ring, and that was great. Let's remake The Grudge, too, and that sucked.
The Grudge is so bad.
And then they remade it again, and it sucked again.
Yeah, you really should have just let The Grudge die where it laid, because that movie and the Japanese version of The Grudge was absolutely like terrifying, and then the American version had its moments, but like, was it Sarah Michelle Gellar? Like she can't do that movie justice. Like,
I remember when that movie came out, I was in middle school, and my health teacher apparently was really scared of the movie. Nice. And we had the phones in our middle school that you could like call between the classrooms and stuff. So I called him up on the phone. my math teacher knew about it, but I called him up on the phone. And I was just like, and she was like, "Stop doing that. He's afraid of that." I'm like, "All right."
That'll mess you up for days and days and days. I love that. That's great.
I mean, the eternal message: kids are creepy.
Oh hell yeah! No thanks. I'm all set. Coming from the teacher.
Like what yeah. So that's why parts of The Grudge work, and The Ring also. So Dave, The Ring, great start. Dave, you're killing it so far. You're killing it. What else you got?
I know I'm doing pretty well. So I have. Oh my God.
You want to put Slither down? Slither.
Oh, fucking love Slither. Love Slither.
No, thank you. I don't want that.
Freddy vs. Jason.
Love Freddy vs. Jason. Hush your mouth.
I'm. Oh my God. I'm stuck between two movies.
You know what? I'll just write Cloverfield for you. I'll just put Cloverfield down.
You can put that down for you.
No, I'm good. By the way, Dave, Cujo is still on the board.
It will stay there forever.
Even though it's the 80s, I'll let you take
it. So I'm gonna.
Don't you take my pick, Dave. I will be forever pissed at you.
I'm going to take Let the Right One In.
Whew, okay. All right.
It's a classic. It's a vampire movie, which I feel like no one really has. So I'm kind of like the one-stop shop here. You get all the different types of horror movies with me. It's not my favorite horror movie. It's good, but I think there's a lot of people that really enjoy this movie, and that's why I'm gonna take it.
And this is the original, like Swedish one, right?
No, this is the one where it has the Oh yeah, no, it is. It is.
Yeah, this is the original because the remake was Let Me In. I think.
Oh, it's Let Me In. I thought the Let the Right One In was the remake. I don't know. I might be wrong.
It's a good point you bring up, Dave. There are not a lot of vampire movies this decade. Well, there are, but they're not horror movies, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
They're sparkly.
Yes. Again, most of those were actually in the 2010s, but the first one did unfortunately come in this decade. So, yeah, there's that. But Let the Right One In. I have not seen it, but I've heard nothing but good things. I think it's at like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a crazy high rating.
So artsy fartsy kind of movie. Got some really nice, like, shots. You got some kids. There's this idea of basically wanting to, this little vampire girl, and she meets another little boy, and he doesn't know that she's a vampire essentially. And there's some terrifying, like, devouring scenes and such, but a lot of very pretty, like pretty shots as well, and very artsy fartsy, if you will.
The girl that has like blood pouring down her head.
Yeah, that seems like absolutely like grotesque and awesome though at the same time. It's really good. It's haunting.
If you're a horror fan, it's like awesome, but otherwise you just like throw up.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think I mean I really like this movie. It's a little slow, but it definitely is one of those movies, like, once again, that really like sets a tone for like other movies. I'm pretty sure 30 Days of Night also comes out in 2000s.
That's right. That was the one that's like a sort of 28 Days Later ripoff. Like,
yeah, with vampires, but it's also based off of a comic book, and the comic book has such like visceral artwork. Like the blood in the artwork of that comic book is really cool, and they try to like copy that in the movie. But I think it inspires some of those types of movies that come out throughout that decade too. So one of those movies, another trendsetter.
Okay, well, Ken, it is back to you.
All right, so you didn't take it, and I'm not letting this one go another round. I think this is a steal in the 4th round. I'm really surprised that no one's take it. This movie genuinely terrifies me. It still makes me scared to this day. I can watch it. I'll probably watch it this week because it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Open Water.
Cabin Fever. Yes, absolutely.
Rider Strong.
I'm taking 2005's The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Wow. It's a good board.
This movie has some of the most scary scenes, I think, of any movie of all time. Jennifer Carpenter, I think that's her name, Jennifer Carpenter. She is, the way she can contort her face and the way that she moves in this movie is so scary. And the idea of like a healthy, happy young girl being like essentially like possessed by a demon and seeing like these like scary faces, the noises that she makes, the way that her body locks up, and the fact that this is actually based off of a true story for real. You can look it up. This movie just basically has it all. I love this movie, and it still scares me to this day.
For real.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. So I've never seen this, but I have heard good things about it. It's one of those genres of movies that, like, I mean, it's. I would think most people would say it's the second best movie about exorcisms.
A lot of people do say that. I mean, obviously, The Exorcist is a classic, and it's definitely like obviously the top one. But I think this is the number 2 overall. And then once again, there are a ton of these shitty movies that come out eventually. Like you have The Exorcism of everything that comes out after this. But this is definitely the first one. And if you haven't watched this movie, watch it. Watch it in the dark. Watch it with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your dog. I don't care who you watch it with, but watch it at night, and you're going to be terrified. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I don't want to take your advice to watch it at night, but I will. If it's on TV, maybe I'll give it the old look see.
Hey, dude, you gotta do, baby. I get you.
Wasn't Scott Derrickson? Didn't he direct this? He directed Doctor Strange too?
Yes, and he does have a lot of those like really cool special effects. There's a lot of really awesome special effects in this movie, and for 2005, it's top notch.
So I am going to stretch the limit of what a horror movie is defined as. Because at the heart of this movie, it is absolutely a slasher film.
Yeah, I know what you're taking. Take it.
I'm taking Hot Fuzz.
Oh, no, I know. Stop it. Never mind. I thought you were taking something else that was an amazing slasher film.
I'm taking Hot Fuzz. It's a horror movie. It is. At the heart of it, it's a horror movie. It's a slasher movie. There is a killer going around murdering people, and it is Nicholas Angel's job to find the killer. What else would you define it as other than a horror comedy?
Well, it's a thriller, murder mystery, suspense.
I mean, have you seen the kills in that movie? It's pretty gruesome.
I have. This movie's hilarious.
It's not like Flu, my friend. These are people getting killed with shears and being shot, and there's gunfights and everything. Like, it's got a little bit of action, but at this point, you know what? Dave ruined all the norms when he took Beetlejuice, so I'm just going off the rails now.
Beetlejuice is a horror movie. I'm throwing it out there. It is a horror movie.
I watched Nightmare Before Christmas last week, and nobody complained about that.
That movie is genuinely terrifying to children.
I mean, it's creepy. It's not exactly.
Oh, I'm disappointed in. So I'm not disappointed in that you love Hot Fuzz because I love Hot Fuzz. It is part of the Cornetto trilogy with my boy Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, but I would not classify this as a horror. This is definitely a murder mystery. It's more of a whodunit, if you will. That's just my opinion. Yes, there's gore.
And Friday the 13th is a whodunit.
No, it's not because Jason can't die. These people die. Stop it. I'm sad about this pick, but I'm also happy because it leaves all the movies that I want still on the board.
Not to pull a Billy Loomis, but Jason wasn't the killer in Friday the 13th.
You're right. Jason's mother, who is
the killer. Well, that was on a CBS Sunday Movies the other night. I was so happy to see it on TV. I love that movie so much.
Low-key, one of the best parts about Hot Fuzz is the fact that the guy who plays the Hound in Game of Thrones is in this, and he is awesome.
That's right. Oh, is he the big dude?
Yeah, he's the big dude. I forget what he says, but he's just like, oh, yeah.
I love Hot Fuzz. So it is, as Dave knows, it's one of my maybe 5 or 6 favorite movies of all time. I love Hot Fuzz. I love it. I laugh hysterically every single time I watch it. I love the scene when he gets promoted and like they have Bill Nighy come in and Martin Freeman's in there and they're like, oh, and what's his name? Steve Coogan also. Like all 3 of them. It's like, oh, do I have to call the Inspector General? Like, do you want me to call him down here right now? Like right this second. It's like, good luck telling it to the team. And he turns around, they're all like celebrating. He just makes them all look bad because he's so good at his job. But I don't like to swear all that much on this podcast anymore. But I do love the line where there's 2 lines in particular I love. The 2 detectives that always give him crap in what's it like Hanfordshire or whatever the town is.
Yeah.
He's like, isn't that your job to detect? And he's running through all the people and he's like, she was killed. It's like, and you think she was murdered. She's like, actually, I think that was nice. It's like, really? No, of course she fucking was. Simon Pegg puts on a masterclass. So is Nick Frost. And what's his name? The one that plays Danny's dad.
Oh yeah, I forget his name, but that movie is a masterclass of character work and really funny timing. I mean, I'm pretty sure Edgar Wright directs all 3 of these movies. I'm pretty sure. Like Hot Fuzz is just a top-notch film. I do think it's a whodunit, but I'll give it to you for a horror just because of the sheer violence and gore that comes with it. But I do think it's more of a mystery whodunit.
Jim Broadbent is the man I'm thinking of.
Gotcha.
And my second pick, so my brother's been, I'm pretty sure my brother's watching this. If he's not, he's been in and out. But he texted me about taking a Rob Zombie movie.
Oh, take it.
I'm going to take The Devil's Rejects. Nice pick. I feel like it's a very underrated horror movie. It is genuinely freaky. What's his name? The clown guy? Oh my God. I forget his name already.
Not Sniffles. What is it? Oh, I forget. I know I can see him with the blue paint and like, yeah.
Hold on, I'm looking it up now. 2005 is when the movie came out. Rob Zombie directed it. Shocker, the critics did not like it. Oh my God, what's his name? It's not even
Rob Zombie movie. The critics didn't like it.
Captain Spaulding was his name.
That's what it was. Yeah.
But yeah, like a genuinely terrifying looking human being. My brother just texted me now. Let's see what he says. Yeah, Captain Spaulding. Thank you, Jimmy. A couple seconds late, but thank you. Captain Spaulding. Yes, classic. It's a really scary movie. Kind of not. It's like if The Strangers had comedy in it a little bit.
And like, it also kind of meets The Hills Have Eyes. Like it's like kind of the hillbilly, like people can't hear you scream in the country. I'm pretty sure this is a sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses, which I prefer House of a Thousand Corpses over Devil's Rejects personally. But I think it's just because of its sheer nature of like, it reminds me a lot of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
But this movie's creepy and terrifying and gory, and it's Rob Zombie. Like it gets a lot of the accolades that like a lot of horror fans really like this movie, but a lot of mainstream people don't particularly like this movie. Yeah,
it's got a good ending scene too with the Freebird scene there at the end. It's tied well together. So I know those aren't picks that people are gonna go crazy for, and they're not like, wow, oh my God, like The Strangers or The Descent or Zombieland, like or Paranormal Activity or Saw or whatever, 28 Days Later, Shaun of the Dead, The Rain, like these big classics. But I think if I find the right voter, I think I'll get some love. But Ken, you are back up. What do you got?
All right, so I gotta go with probably one of my favorite anthology movies of all time. It is a true Halloween flick, if you will. I'm gonna go with Trick or Treat. Is it Trick or Treat or Trick or Treat?
I think it's Trick or Treat, but I'm gonna write Trick or Treat.
I think like you say it really fast, like trick or treat.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but it's an anthology film essentially of different horror stories that take place on Halloween night. It's got some of the coolest stories. Essentially, like one of them's like a bus driver that kills all these kids, like on a bus and like drives off a cliff, and they come back and they, like attack people. There's this little creepy kid that like has like a sharp lollipop that kills people. You've got werewolves. You've got some vampires. Like it's a pretty sweet movie, and I think overall, like the first time I watched this, I was very pleasantly surprised to what it was because I didn't think it was going to be good. But then it becomes really good, and the stories are really good, and it kind of reminds me a lot of like Tales from the Crypt, but done right. So I think overall, like this is one of my favorite horror anthology films of all time.
That creepy kid, that's the one on the poster, right?
Yeah, with the little like mat, like the thing over his head. His head literally looks like a pumpkin underneath too. It's really weird.
Well, there you go. I guess it all works. But I've never seen this, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. I've heard it's very well reviewed. People generally like it, and it's captures that Halloween anthology thing that Halloween was going for, and then people just didn't like Season of the Witch for whatever reason, and then they stopped doing it. But
I'm getting scowls from behind me. Elena's listening, and she absolutely hates that movie. She threw up when she saw it. It was so gross.
Season of the Witch?
Yes.
Well, I was 7. I threw up.
I love Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. I'm like the only person on the planet who does, but I love that movie. It's never on TV, so I don't get the satisfaction of watching it. But
yeah, that's a movie you got to watch on your own. That's alone time, Jake time.
I'm probably not going to draft this, so I don't care if I mention it. But the only movie that I've seen, maybe one of the only movies I've seen in theaters that almost made me physically ill was Drag Me to Hell.
Yeah, that movie, Sam Raimi special. I actually saw that, like low key. Quick story. I had a random Tuesday off from work. And I was the only one that ended up going to this theater to see this movie. Nobody else was in the theater. I was all by myself, and I had to leave. I think I was like probably, I don't know, like 16 or 17. I don't remember exactly when it came out, but I had to leave the theater because I was so creeped out and grossed out, and I was the only one in the theater. So I left, and I had to watch it like when it came on like video. So, yeah, that movie is gross.
Yeah, and it also has a movie that I didn't even put on the list because I didn't even think about it, but a movie that any of us could have taken or could still take is Final Destination. And it has a very Final Destination-esque ending to it, where you think it's a nice, happy ending, and then he brings the button back, and she literally just gets dragged to hell right there, and that's the end of the movie. That's it.
It's very classic Sam Raimi, like Evil Dead-esque as well. So
exactly. So that's a good pick, Trick or Treat. I know we got completely off the topic of it, but so Dave, you have back-to-back picks, and both Cujo and Season of the Witch are still on the board. If you want to take them,
man, lucky me. I mean, it doesn't get any better. So I'm gonna start off by taking a found footage film because I don't have one. I'm gonna take Record. I'm gonna take Rec.
All right.
Yeah,
I think it's extremely terrifying when you watch it when you're younger, especially. The build-up, the suspense, the darkness, like the found footage aspect in the dark, like walking around and like you're just walking on eggshells the whole movie. You have no idea what's around the corner. It's just one of those movies where you watch it and like you can literally feel your heart racing through while you're watching it.
It's also like way too real right now because like we're literally the movie like that's based off of the American one. It's called Quarantine. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, who knows what potentially could be happening in the world? And so it's too real right now for me. But overall, like the gore and the creepy factor of like the zombie, like zombie-esque characters that are in this are terrifying. There's one scene where I think someone falls through the stairs and like a head hits a rail and like comes down like a rag doll like that. There are so many just like really, really awesome scenes. And this is like a really like, I think this is a testament to filmmaking and horror films. This is like one of the first ones to do that kind of a style found footage throughout like a big building all the way up and down. It was really cool.
Yeah, there's some really great cinematography in that movie, which can be tough when you're shooting on like a handheld camera. So
yeah,
they do a really good job, and it's a foreign film too. So you're getting some of the overseas vote there, Dave.
Right? Yeah, I'm trying to cross off all the little checkpoints here, all the different aspects of horror. I have the found footage, I have vampire, I have comedy, I have everything.
I love it.
So what are you going to finish off with?
That's the question.
Take teeth. Take Teeth.
No way.
Oh,
Again,
baby.
open water, still there.
I saw that today. That is the worst horror movie I think I've ever seen.
Teeth or Open Water?
Open water.
Oh, have you seen Teeth?
No.
Have you seen Teeth?
No, but I know what it's about.
Okay, well, don't watch it. It's
No.
awful. Sorry, go ahead.
Open water though, it's literally just the whole movie. Nothing happens.
Yeah,
That's the thrill, Dave.
It's like it's not thrilling at all.
Oh, okay, Dave. You sit in shark-infested waters for an hour and a half, and you tell me that it's not thrilling.
I mean, that would be terrifying. But I'm on my couch wishing that I'd be enjoying something. Man, I'm between two movies here. I'm gonna go with.
Wait! Before you announce it, part of me just imagines that you wanted to watch it to prep, like you were gonna take it, and then just wasted your time.
Oh no, I watched it because, like I said, I'm doing a day for the month.
Right. So, what are you gonna take, Dave? Suspense is killing us over here.
I'm going to take. Man, I'm so torn. I have two movies. I'm gonna say it because I have my last pick. I don't care what you guys take after. I'm between Pan's Labyrinth and The Host.
Ooh.
They're both really.
I know what I would take. I know what I would take.
I know what I would take as well.
I'm going to take. I'm gonna take The Host.
No, that was not what I would have taken.
Not what I would have taken either.
But it's okay. So there's that.
I'm gonna take The Host because I like Bong Joon-ho. It's a Bong Joon-ho movie.
Okay, that's fair.
And I mean, if we're being honest, Pan's Labyrinth has maybe one of the creepiest monsters with the eyeballs in the hands. Yeah. I saw that in Spanish class actually, which was amazing.
Oh, Lo Santo.
Yeah.
You watched that in Spanish class? Isn't that movie rated R?
Yeah, that movie's real rated R. That wine bottle scene.
Yep. And absolutely rated R.
You must have had a cool Spanish teacher.
Well, we were seniors. We're 18.
But you're not all 18.
Yeah, it was Spanish 5.
Well, actually, no. I guess our rated R is 17, so I guess it doesn't matter. But
yeah. But
all it takes is one kid to complain.
It's true. That's true.
Damn Karens.
But I'm gonna go with The Host because I like Bong Joon-ho. I'm representing here. I was really torn. I thought I was gonna go with Pan's Labyrinth, but I decided to pull the trigger at the last minute.
Okay.
Feature. I get it. It's got some cool. It's got some amazingly cool scenes. You've got like tentacly. It's pretty cool. I think it's a well shot, really cool movie. It's a movie that you can't just sit down and watch on a Saturday night, though. You have to have a lot of focus and ready to do it. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's got to be a movie you can't sit and have on your phone while you're watching it for sure.
Yeah, it's just like all the other Bong Joon-ho films like that in that aspect.
Speaking of Bong Joon-ho, can I take Parasite for that one frame of that ghost face coming up?
Oh hell yeah!
So that legitimately scared the crap out of me. That face, and they never really even talked about what it was. Like they just I guess it was just like a kid thinking it was a ghost and that's what he saw.
Yeah,
but that face still scared the crap out of me. It's like The Exorcist with that subliminal image. So Ken, your last pick.
You know what? If Jake's gonna go and take Hot Fuzz as a horror film, I am gonna go and take one of the most iconic psychological slasher thriller movies of all time. With the last overall pick here for me, I'm gonna take American Psycho, which came out in the year 2000.
I like it.
Obviously, we got Christian Bale in probably one of his most iconic roles of his career. You have a serial killer who kills people who's essentially jealous of other people and or just zealous just in general. He's a narcissist. He's somebody who hates anybody who has things better than him. He also hates ugly people. He killed a man over a business card texture. So I personally think this movie's great. And you also have some of the coolest monologues of any slasher thriller film of all time, where he's talking through music, like Huey Lewis and Genesis and all this other stuff, and then he's just smiling, killing people.
He's walking around setting up a tarp in his house, talking about Huey Lewis in the news.
Yeah, and he's sitting there just telling him the history, and he's smiling while he's setting up a tarp.
And he hacks Jared Leto to pieces.
This movie is awesome, and I saw it way too young, and then I watched it again as an adult, and I was like, "Oh my boy! How the hell was I allowed to watch this?"
Oh my god, yeah. There's a lot of scenes in this movie that young people probably shouldn't be watching.
Yeah, you got some pictures and stuff. But yeah, no, I think I was going through. I've got some honorable mentions. I'll go at the end here, but I was going through a plethora, and I think that American Psycho is probably the biggest name that was left on the board. And I think as a classic film, a classic horror thriller film, this is one of the best out there.
That's a great pick.
That is a great pick. Patrick Bateman hates ugly people, so we would probably not be good friends.
We're all handsome gentlemen here. How dare you?
We're a handsome group of
It
people.
is a good pick. I mean, I would say it's more horror than Hot Fuzz is, but it's freaky. It is at its heart a psychological slasher killer horror movie. He's a scary guy, that Patrick Bateman. I mean, the movie is literally called American Psycho. Like, come on.
And it also, there's a sequel that comes out with Mila Kunis. So, fun fact, that movie.
Really?
Yeah, it's American Psycho 2, and she is a female serial killer. And fun fact, it's not good.
No, I didn't think so. It sounds like the shot-for-shot Psycho remake.
Yeah.
Vince Vaughn.
Well, I mean, that one's so terrible. But if you read the book Psycho in the front, I'm pretty sure, Elena, I need to know the exact quote. What was the exact quote in the front of the book? Do you remember?
I think it was like, this is what the movie was based on.
The front of the book, Psycho, was like, this is what the movie was based on. And it was like Alfred Hitchcock or something. It's just like his actual quote.
Well, yeah.
Love American Psycho, gore fest, absolute like crazy movie. If you haven't seen it, 2000, one of the best to come out that year.
So I could go with the obvious. I could go with Pan's Labyrinth. I mean, I could go for
Jeepers Creepers.
No, I'm not gonna take Jeepers Creepers. Thanks so much. That movie is way too unsettling.
There's a lot of really good movies still on this board. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
It's a very deep deck.
I am gonna finish it out going full camp, and I'm gonna take Freddy versus Jason with my last pick.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, Freddy versus Jason, absolutely.
You're a full heel, baby, full heel.
Yeah, I mean, no one's expecting it to win an Oscar. All right, like no one's looking at it like wow. But like I've said before, and I think I said to Dave, and I'll say to Ken, but like it's crazy we don't have more of these movies. Like we should have more of these versus movies. Like put Michael Myers up against, I don't know, like Leatherface or something. I don't know. Like do more of these.
Here's the question: Do we need them?
Yes, we need them. We need nothing more as a nation than Leprechaun versus Chucky. We need nothing.
Right, never mind. You sold me there. You have sold me officially with Leprechaun versus Chucky.
All the puns we could have with Leprechaun versus Chucky.
We could only be so lucky.
But Freddy versus Jason is great. They beat the living hell out of each other throughout this entire movie. And you think like Jason would absolutely murder Freddy Krueger because Freddy Krueger is like all skin and bones and he's not very strong or big. But like it's cool that, and I watched. I don't know if you guys watched any of the like. Well, he is the angry video game nerd, but he does the Cinemassacre like movie reviews every October. His one about Freddy vs. Jason is very good, and it kind of looks at how like Jason when he's near water is like I think he's weaker when he's near water, and Freddy's weaker when he's near fire, which makes sense because one burned alive, one drowned. Yeah. So it's cool that dichotomy, and they really go at one another. Like it's very very gruesome, but yeah. So,
yeah, I would describe this as the WWE of horror films. It is theatrical. It is dramatic. There is big time gore. There's a lot of it's just a ridiculous film, like monster trucks. Like if they were a horror movie, like that's what this is.
Pretty much.
I get it. I get it. But there's so many good movies left on the board.
I know. So we'll go over honorable mentions in a second. Let me just read off our lineups. So mine is The Strangers, The Descent, Zombieland, Hot Fuzz, The Devil's Rejects, and Freddy vs. Jason. Ken, you took Saw, Dawn of the Dead, Paranormal Activity, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, Trick or Treat, and American Psycho. Dave, you took 28 Days Later, Shaun of the Dead, The Ring, Let the Right One In, Wreck, and Record, whatever you want to call it, and The Host. So some honorable mentions. I'll throw out Drag Me to Hell, which is, I think, a good movie. A lot of people crap on it, but I like that movie.
Good movie.
I've never seen Ginger Snaps, but I've heard very good things about it. It's a werewolf movie.
Yeah, I don't love werewolf movies.
Pan's Labyrinth, we mentioned, all three of us, and none of us took it.
Yep.
Slither, Ken, you said you liked this movie?
Fucking love Slither. Absolutely love Slither, and I tell you why, it's a gore fest, and it's just a ton of fun. You should definitely watch it. It's super fun.
It's Elizabeth Banks, I think, is in this, right? Yeah. Jenna Fisher's also in it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Jeepers Creepers, like Dave mentioned. I wouldn't draft it, but it is a good movie.
It's great.
The first one is actually is good. The first one.
Really weird monster too.
Oh, it's just totally. It's very unsettling.
We could just say teeth and move right along. Cloverfield. I've never seen, but Cloverfield was one of those movies that
revolutionary. Revolutionary.
a big campaign with it. Like it was like, oh my god, like what is? And I heard like the payoff wasn't very good,
I
but
saw it in theaters and it was a ton of fun. I wouldn't like if you're gonna watch it at home. It's not as fun. You got to watch it in the big screen. It's one of those movies.
I've never seen 1408, but it's gotten a lot of good reviews. Good. What's it about? What is it?
Samuel L. Jackson. It's a hotel room. It's haunted. It's fun. It's just a lot of like good, just a horror. Like it's just like kind of creepy. That's what it is. It's pretty good.
One is Tony Shalhoub in this one?
I
No.
don't remember. John Cusack. Yes, it's John
Oh,
Cusack.
okay, John Cusack. So I'm thinking of not Tony Shalhoub. All right. So I also put Planet Terror and Death Proof on here.
Back to back, baby. You got some Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez. I love both of these movies. Planet Terror is a higher one for me because it's zombies and it's got Fergie in it, I'm pretty sure. Great film.
Interesting.
In the beginning, she gets killed. Spoiler.
Snakes on a Plane. I did unironically put on this list.
It's definitely scary. I'll give you that.
It's a movie. That's for sure.
Yeah,
As much as Dave derides it, I put Open Water.
that movie blows. I'm sorry.
Sucks.
And then the only other one I had in here was The Others, which is Nicole Kidman, I believe. It's Naomi Watts. Who is it?
It's Nicole Kidman, yeah.
She was also in The Hours, and that was the one she won the Oscar for.
The other's pretty good. It's spooky, ghosty, like it's pretty good.
Yeah. So that's my honorable mentions. Cam, what else you got?
So I've got some ones that are probably not mainstream. I've got 3 films here. So one film, 1 Hour Photo with Robin Williams.
Right.
That movie is awesome. And it is a psychological thriller, like horror movie. Essentially, this guy develops family and falls in love with the wife. It's really, really good. I do like Robin Williams in his dramatic roles a lot, and that's one of his like weirder roles he's ever been in. Another one I have is called Grave Encounters. It is a Canadian film, and it's like a found footage for like. You ever seen like those ghost adventure TV shows where it's like they're like bros in the dark looking for ghosts?
Oh my god, dude! I have seen Grave Encounters.
Yeah, that movie's
Grave Encounters.
that movie's dope. It's
I watched that movie in college. It scared the shit out of me.
yeah, it's absolutely dope. If you haven't seen it, there's a second one that's pretty good too. But I love that movie. And then I'm gonna go straight up weird, like foreign film that I think everyone should watch, but it is kind of like a gore fest and really just unsettling. It's a movie called Martyrs.
Yep.
This movie is disturbing to say the least, and essentially, I'll just give you just a quick synopsis. Basically, these people are tortured to the close near brink of death, and apparently, there's something in the light of your eyes when it goes out that is like it gives people life. It's really, really weird. I would just give it a shot because it's beautifully shot and the special effects are ridiculous and it will creep you out for like days and days and days.
That sounds good. Just looking at the description there. Dave, you got any honorable mentions?
I'm just gonna run through a few. I mean, we said Final Destination that would have gotten us some points. I don't think it's on the list that we have. Like I think it's below all the ones we took. But The Mist and Session 9 on Netflix right now too is especially that's
Great.
pretty.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that does it for the 2000s. This poll will go up in this is an unconventional week because we're doing 2 of these. So this poll will probably go up on Thursday. We're doing the 2010s with Olivia Peralt. Olivia's first appearance on the show where Dave will also be here because she's only been on for music once before. So Dave and
There's nothing but music.
yes, that's right. That's right. Dave tends to stay away from the music ones. But anyway, that'll do it for this episode. Ken, thank you for joining us. Where can we find you?
So I am a co-host of a podcast called the JKLOL podcast. You can find us on Twitter at @JKLOL podcast. You can find me on Twitter at TheWalkingKen23. I am constantly screaming into the void of politics, so feel free to follow me and call me a snowflake. See you there.
Dynamite. Anyway, thank you for joining us, Dave. Where can we find you?
You can find me at David_Albiani.
Perfect. I am at Jacob_Morocco. The podcast is CSL Podcast on Twitter. Go look at our stuff on CSLpodcast.com. We got stuff from the Lost Boys and the Elite 2 over there as well. My other 2 podcasts. Go check those out. And our next episode, like I said, is on Thursday. Olivia Peralt's joining us to do the 2010s as we close out our month of horror movie drafts. So keep it locked then, and we will talk to you later in the week. Let me just end the broadcast.